The Amrita is actually in their brains, and the whale hunters have to drill into their brains and extract it. Now, why would we want this stuff? Well, apparently this Amrita stops human aging, just stops it. So clearly really valuable, right? I mean, I get why something that would stop human aging would be valuable, but also how much super valuable stuff is Pandora going to have? Like the next movie is Fire and Ash. So is the magma of Pandora actually going to be made out of like platinum and gold mixture that cures all diseases or something?
Probably not, but maybe.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be continuing to rank action movies. So for those of you who are new to the show, I'm going to give you a quick agenda here. We start with the potent notables, which are just a few interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the making of the movie. Then I go into the movie overview, which is me talking about everything that happened in the movie, so spoiler alert. And then I do the rank, where I rank the movie in 10 categories on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, all to find out what are the best action movies of all time. And today, we're going to be ranking Avatar: The Way of Water, the 2022 action sci-fi epic starring Sam Worthington, Sigourney Weaver, Zoe Saldaña, and Kate Winslet, with a story by Shane Salerno, Josh Friedman, Amanda Silver, Rick Jaffa, and James Cameron, a screenplay written by Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, and James Cameron, and directed by James Cameron. So is this one of the best action movies of all time? Is it better than the first Avatar that I ranked a few weeks ago? Let's find out, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So as always, we start the potent notables with the box office info. Avatar: The Way of Water made $688.5 million domestically and $1.7 billion internationally, for a worldwide total of $2.3 billion. Now this was against a budget of $350 million, which is a crazy high budget, and yet it still made $2.3 billion. So James Cameron once again proves he's worth the risk. I mean, if you look at the top 5 box office grossers of all time, 3 of the first 4 are James Cameron movies. Number 1 being Avatar, number 3 being Avatar: The Way of Water, and number 4 being Titanic. And if you're wondering what movie happened to squeeze in between the James Cameron movies, Avengers: Endgame. And the fact that Marvel squeezed in between them is going to be kind of funny when we get to the end here. You'll see why. So on to some of the other potent notables. Kate Winslet performed all of her own underwater stunts. And to this point, she broke Tom Cruise's underwater filming record for Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation of 6 minutes underwater, with a record-breaking 7 minutes and 15 seconds. How are you just not dead holding your breath for that long? She wasn't the only one though. Sigourney Weaver also insisted on doing her stunts. She did breath holding for dives, she did parkour so she could run along freed limbs like the teens do in this movie, and she did underwater sign language training. She said she was determined to be able to do everything they did because she didn't want to be called that old lady. The only thing she didn't join in was the knife fighting and archery training, because she was like, well, Kiri's a gentle, non-violent person. And the reason that this movie took so long is that in 2013, Cameron, who had all these notes about the Na'vi and Pandora and everything, went to his producer John Landau, who's produced every picture for Cameron since Titanic, and said that he had decided he wanted to do the aquatic setting for the next one. But Landau said, look, buddy, we got a problem here. We don't have the ability to use motion capture technology for actors on a dry set playing wet. So instead of Cameron changing his mind and doing a different setting for the second movie, they're like, let's do a bunch of R&D for a decade. And finally, for my last potent notable here, the Metkayina clan, who are the sea people that James Cameron wanted to focus on for this first sequel to Avatar, are based on the Maori people of New Zealand. And they worked with James Cameron to incorporate their customs and traditions into this, Na'vi clan. That being said, let's dive into the movie overview. So like I said, we've got a new Avatar movie coming out, and I thought, well, let's get caught up on the rank. Why not, right? I've got 3 hours to kill. James, you're an amazing filmmaker and everything, but really? 3 hours? That being said, it didn't actually feel like 3 hours, so that's pretty dang positive. So we open the movie with some sweeping vistas of the forests and floating mountains of Pandora, and it's really kind of spectacular. So the film is going to use this time where we're basking in the world that this IP has created to give us some exposition to fill in the gap of the past, 16 years? And they do it pretty well, because we're going to see Neytiri pregnant, and then Sully's going to be doing a voiceover monologue where he's talking about beads beads that didn't exist in the first movie and we only really see in the beginning here. But the beads are like, you get a bead for every moment in your life. So we get a moment, right? Sully and Neytiri's first son Neteyam is born. That's a moment. They adopt Kiri, who is Grace's avatar's baby. They don't know who the father is, but really it's Awa, right? I mean, they don't come right out and say it, but that's what happened, right? That in the last movie, Grace's avatar is all wrapped up. She's wrapped up. Awa's like got them, and they can't make the transfer into the avatar. But what they did is they impregnated Grace's avatar with like Grace's soul or something. That just seems to me what is happening, right? But Neytiri is going to have another son named Loak, and then they have a girl named Tuk. And we also get to meet Spider, who's a human kid, because apparently he couldn't leave with the humans because babies can't go into cryo. They explain that in that voiceover monologue from Sam Worthington, but also later Spider is gonna go, babies can't go into cryo, dumbass. I guess I didn't know that. I didn't know that babies couldn't go into cryo. But he's sort of just stuck there and he wants to be Na'vi. He plays with all the Na'vi kids, but you know, they show Neytiri is still untrustworthy of him because he's an alien. Now, before I go any further, I do want to give some kudos here because there was a moment where in his voiceover, Sam Worthington Sully is saying how it took him a long time to learn the Na'vi language, but when he did finally get it, the words basically sound like English to him now. And then they use that as a transition to everybody speaking English so we don't have to read subtitles for the whole movie. I thought that was pretty clever. I enjoyed that. Anyway, it was sort of incredible that we have a movie that's 3 hours long and we get all of Sully's family and exposition and everything for it in like the first 10 minutes. Why would we want to take so little time getting to know them in the beginning, right? What could be coming? Well, to answer that question, humans are coming, and not in the fun way. That's right, these humans come with the fire as they napalm Pandora's forest like it's Vietnam. And if you're thinking after that happens, we're gonna get some human on Na'vi war, think again. What we're going to get is a title card that says 1 year later. So we spend the first 10 to 20 minutes of the movie doing exposition to advance it about 16 years or so, and then we get a title card for a year. But they do give us a scene now where they show what the pesky natives have been doing to combat the human invasion, as we see them attack a train on Pandora that's carrying weapons. Where was it carrying weapons to and from? We don't know. And I do kind of question it because later they're going to show us the human settlement and it's basically just one place. So why would they be sending guns on a train anywhere else? And now if you're going to say, well, they could be sending it to that settlement, where from? Why? But that's okay, because this scene is meant to really do three things. It's meant to show us that 1, the Na'vi are resisting in their own way. 2, that Sully is a hard-nosed leader. And 3, that Neteyam is the good son and Loak is the impetuous one. That dynamic is going to play out for the entire rest of the movie. Neteyam is going to say, hey, we shouldn't do that. And then Loak is going to be like, come on, bro, we's gotta. Or someone else is going to easily goad Loak into doing something, and Neteyam is going to be like, oh, I gotta go be with my brother. Loak is really going to keep the plot going for us. Now, the train raid is going to lead us directly to what's going on with the humans. We find out that they've cloned Colonel Quaritch from the villain from the first movie into a Na'vi avatar, specifically so that he can exact revenge against Sully. And they show this with a cute little exposition, bringing Giovanni Ribisi back even, to show that the events that led to this happening really did happen in the first movie. They just didn't show it. Seriously, guys, we had this plan from the beginning, for real. You see, all of Quaritch's memories and personality are going to be saved on this little thumb drive thing, and we're going to implant it into an avatar that we're growing on Earth. I mean, only if he dies. He doesn't get to be human. Nope, he's going to be Na'vi, and look, he signed up for it. Because of course they had a contingency plan if they lost, and that plan was not to bring in reinforcements, but to transfer a guy's essence into a Na'vi avatar so that he can exact revenge on the guy that beat him. Now, I think we can all admit that this is a silly plot line, and I don't really understand why they felt like they needed to bring Quaritch back. However, he is a great villain, so I just went along for the ride. We also find out that they've got a new lady general in charge of the human settlement, and she's like, we've done more in the past year than we did for the past 30 years before on this world. And what they're doing is that this place is going to be a place for human settlement. It's no longer just a mining expedition. As a matter of fact, they don't seem to care about unobtainium at all anymore. But wasn't that the most valuable mineral in the universe, you ask? Don't worry, there's going to be a new super valuable thing that we're going to find out later. So this whole whole sequence is going to start the hunt for Sully. Why? Well, to pacify the native population, they need to kill their leader, obviously. Jake is going to intuit this for some reason, and he knows that if he just leaves, they just won't attack the Na'vi. I'm not really sure what his plan was here, because if all they care about is him, if he leaves, wouldn't they just chase him? Which they do. But if the stated goal is to get Sully out so that they can pacify the natives, then wouldn't they achieve their goal if he leaves? But hey, we needed a reason to meet the aqua skin tone sea people Na'vi, even if it was super thin. Part of this whole determination that Sully makes is because they almost kidnapped his kids, and they did kidnap Spider, who is very clearly Quaritch's kid. So we're gonna head back to the humans, and we're gonna get this scene where this crazy machine is trying to extract Spider's thoughts to find out where Sully is, but Quaritch is gonna intervene and be like, let me try the personal approach. Is this because he loves his son? Well, Quaritch is going to intimate that that's not it. He's a clone, so this kid is not his anyway. But see, he appreciates that Spider won't rat out where Sully is, that he's loyal, and he appreciates somebody who's loyal. So instead, he's gonna have him train him and his other Avatar Marines into becoming real Na'vi. And Spider's like, sure, I can do that. That sounds good. We're gonna skip all the being one with nature stuff though. We're gonna go straight to the badass stuff, and you're gonna get Necron. And while they're becoming Na'vi, Sully and his family are also learning to become Na'vi, except the sea people version of Na'vi. And this entire part of the movie that takes up a ton of screen time is really just an origin story of sorts for the Metkayina tribe of Na'vi people. It's really just the same story as the first one, recycled to introduce us to a new clan. Now that makes it sound really bad, and you know, it is thin, but the imagery is just gorgeous. And I acknowledge that the premise here seems kind of simple and dumb, but I like that this race of people rides fish and communes with whales. And I like that these whales have their own intelligence and society and mathematics and songs. It's a cool premise. And I don't mind learning about all this through Sully's family. There's no doubt that it's contrived, but they contrived it to show us this gorgeous world. So the problem is how do they move the plot forward? Well, to do this, they have Kiri have a seizure when she communes with underwater Awa. This convinces Sully with his human ways to call his lab friends to fly over to them in human aircraft that would obviously be picked up by radar to help Kiri. They do absolutely nothing for Kiri, and then they leave. But what they've done for the audience is they've given a reason for Quaritch to come looking for Sully again. And look for him he does, bringing Spider along with him. He commandeers a whale ship and starts burning Metkayina villages in an attempt to find Sully. But they're not giving him up, and this whaling ship captain is really losing his patience because he wants to kill some whales, man. Why? For Pandora's version of ambergris. Except that the Tulkun, which are the name of the whales in Pandora, don't excrete their stuff called amrita. The amrita is actually in their brains, and the whale hunters have to drill into their brains and extract it. Now, why would we want this stuff? Well, apparently this amrita stops human aging, just stops it. So clearly really valuable, right? I mean, I get why something that would stop human aging would be valuable. But also, how much super valuable stuff is Pandora going to have? Like the next movie is Fire and Ash. So is the magma of Pandora actually going to be made out of like platinum and gold mixture that cures all diseases or something?
Probably not, but maybe.
But look, the point of this is to remind us all that humans suck and that the Na'vi are better, and it does a good job of that. I mean, it's not entirely unbelievable that humans would go to another world and hunt whales. I mean, we already have hunted whales almost to extinction on our world, and it's really not all that different than an American traveling to Africa to hunt lions, and we do that bullshit. And while we're learning about these dirty deeds, Loak is going to befriend a Tulkun. He's an outcast because according to Tulkun, all killing is bad, so they don't do it, even if it's killing them. Ah, humans, we really bring out the best in everything, don't we? So Loak is once again going to keep the plot moving for us by going to Payakan, who's the outcast Tulkun, to warn him about the hunters that are coming to the area. This is after Quaritch makes the whale hunters leave a mom and her calf that they killed floating in the water for the Na'vi to find them. And actually, this part is like really fucked up because they go after a mother and her calf because the calf swims slower and the mother won't leave the calf's side. Feels very true of a predator, but still really fucked up. Naturally, when Loak gets to Payakan is actually in the middle of being hunted by this team. And Loak has got not just Sully's family, his brother and his sisters, but the Metkayina tribal chief's family as well. But this is going to start the final battle between the Na'vi and Quaritch's group. And these are some pretty awesome and at times gut-wrenching scenes. The gut-wrenching one being when Neteyam is killed. I mean, Neytiri's reaction to that it's crushing. The problem is that Sully's kids keep getting captured and they keep having to go rescue them. But the fighting and action scenes here are just expertly and excellently done. And eventually it'll lead to the final showdown between Sully and Quaritch. The final showdown doesn't end the movie though. I mean, they have to set up the sequel, right? And they set that up by having Spider save his dad, which I'm pretty sure Sully doesn't know about, as he adopts Spider, saying a son for a son. They have a burial for Neteyam, and then Sully realizes when he says he's gonna leave the Metkayina that he is home, because the Metkayina tribal chief is like, hey, your son is with our ancestors now, you are home. But we end with Sully saying this realization out loud in the voiceover and saying he has to fight. And so, let's find out how it ranked.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, action sequences, film coherence, hero appeal, villain appeal / hatred, supporting characters appeal, the final showdown, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. But before I dive into the rankings here, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help us out. But without further ado, the first category is story. Now, we have a continuation from the story of the first movie. It's no longer so much a planetary and large scope epic as it is more of a familial and intimate epic in a way. I mean, it still has the planetary scale to it because we're meeting a whole new clan of people. But I thought that the family aspect here was a good change of pace. It grounds us with the characters and helps us empathize more with everything that's happening. The world building continues and it's really fun, so I gave it a 4. So let's go to acting. And I really didn't have an issue with any of the acting, except for one actor. And I almost don't want to say it, but Sigourney Weaver playing angsty teen just didn't do it for me. I don't see why they couldn't have just had someone that was already, or is at least much closer to being an angsty teen, play the role. I just think it would have resonated more. That was really the only weak spot for me though. Maybe the fact that the sons had accents in the beginning and then they immediately lost them for the rest of the movie. But anyway, I gave it a 3.75. So let's go to originality, which is also, does it stand on its own as a sequel? And this movie is pretty reliant on the first movie, especially for the main villain hero conflict. Now the first one's originality laid in its world building because, a white savior of the natives has been done a lot. And while this one doesn't have the same story, it's not like we haven't seen the save my family from an evil dude who's bent on revenge plot. All that being said, it's obviously not the most original, but you have to give it some points for the world building and the beautiful design of the water world that was created. So I gave it a 2.5. So let's go to action sequences. And the action sequences were almost always tense and edge of your seat. There was really only one where I didn't care as much, and that's when the subs were first chasing the children. And that really wasn't bad. It just wasn't as tense as some of the others had been. But other than that, I thought it was great. So I decided to go almost perfect with a 4.85. So let's go to film coherence. There are some coherence issues that I have and some that carry over from the first movie. Now, if you want to see what those were, you can watch the ranking for the first Avatar, because there's really no need to rehash them here. So here are some of my questions that came up while I was watching this. This one's not as big of a deal, but how are the Na'vi able to breathe in Earth's atmosphere for hours, but humans can only breathe in Pandora for seconds or whatever? How is the blue team perceived as indigenous when it flew in using human aircraft with human operators? I ask this because the lady general there, she says there's an instinctual swarm, it's attacking an infection anytime they go in there. But when they went in with just a few of the Na'vi, apparently the Ikran were fine with that. And then they're able to extract them without any issue as well. I don't know, didn't really get that. Another point of this is, and I mentioned this in the movie overview, but Sully is trying to convince Neytiri to leave the forest, and I actually don't understand this point. Why does he just automatically know that they're only after him? I mean, the humans want to pacify the Na'vi, so if he leaves, wouldn't that make it easier for them to do that? So why go after him at all after he left? Why not just attack the Na'vi that are now essentially leaderless, right? It really seems like Quaritch is just on a revenge mission. And with Quaritch, why wouldn't they clone him into a human if they wanted to clone him? Like, they could still use an avatar and he gets to be human again. Also, why would he be so eager to live out his days as a blue avatar? I mean, even Quaritch's clone here is like, I'm not Quaritch, I just have his memories and personality. So then why is he so eager on getting revenge? And finally, they're training the Sullys the way of the sea people, which to me just seems like they're just making them learn how to hold their breath for a long time and ride fish. And the whole premise here was like, we gotta train you how to be sea people so that you're not useless. But how do these skills make them useful? Like, I didn't see them do anything that would be useful for the tribe. So what was the point? It's basically everything they did was for socialization, which, I mean, fine, but that doesn't make you useful. It just makes you able to converse and understand. Now, most of these are just nitpicky points about small details rather than the big plot considerations. Except for the whole Quaritch chasing Sully for his vanity and there not being any real usefulness to the skills that they're teaching the Sullys. I also think this movie didn't need to be over 3 hours long. I mean, I'm fine with it. I was entertained the entire time, but it could have been trimmed a little. For all that, I decided to give it a 2.5. So, on to hero appeal. The hero is Jake Sully once again, and in the first one, he's a little vanilla. Not bad or anything, just a little vanilla. In this one, though, he seems to have more depth, and I'm sure it's because they gave him a family. I thought he was better in this one, and I was more behind him for sure, so I gave him a 4. So that brings us to villain appeal / hatred. And you know, Colonel Quaritch is just a really good villain. The premise for him being the villain in this one is really thin, though. But there's just something about him that is just inherently enjoyable to watch as far as villains go. So I gave him a 4.5. So let's go to supporting characters appeal. And this honestly is where the movie really shines. This is a really large cast and it seems like pretty much all of them work really well. The kids were great, you really empathized with them. I liked that they all had their own thing. I liked the sea people, I enjoyed the villains. Jermaine Clement's marine biologist was fun. Spider was great. I thought this was a great aspect, in spite of what I thought about Sigourney's acting as Kiri. I gave it a 5. So that brings us to the final showdown. Tension was high when we finally got to see Quaritch and Sully fight. They had really built it up well. Sully got to have a great hero line. Let's get it done now then. The fight scenes were great because it felt like they were evenly matched, and that Quaritch was strong enough that you could suspend your disbelief and think, well, maybe he is gonna kill Sully, even though you knew he wouldn't. This was excellent. I gave it a 5. So this brings us to my rank. Now, after listening to the movie overview, you might think this guy didn't really like this movie, but I really enjoyed it. I like this movie a lot. I enjoyed it a lot when I saw it in the theater, and I still enjoyed it when I rewatched it, though I did notice more issues with it. That being said, look, this is a fun movie, and if you're looking for a fun action movie to watch, how could you go wrong with this one? I gave it a 4.5. So that puts the total for Avatar: The Way of Water at a 40.6, which puts it in the tier Supreme Cinema. Now here's what surprised me and what I was talking about with being sandwiched with the MCU. It ended up being tied with Iron Man 2, which is just below Thor and just above Iron Man 3. It's funny because I see that grouping and I don't know that I necessarily actually agree with that, but whatever, that's how it shook out. So thanks for listening and or watching. You can check out my other action movie rankings. There are a lot of them, or you can try any of the other movie rankings that I've done or sitcoms. If you'd like to see a list of our action movie rankings, you can do that on the website at therankedpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, comment, and like the videos if you enjoyed it. You can reach out to me directly by emailing me at john@therankedpodcast.com with your questions, comments, or suggestions. I'm happy to answer you back. And if you really want to support us monetarily, you can do that at our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankedpodcast. But that's it. So, haya love. The gut-wrenching cum.
The what?
The gut-wrenching cum. Oh boy. There's the blooper. Jesus.